The Chinese letter chamber on Station Theta 9 had seen 2 centuries of galactic history, treaties signed there, alliances forged, empires condemned. But tonight, the circular room held something different. War stories. Veth Kral sat in the witness seat, his armored hide reflecting the dim amber lights. Around him, a dozen other veterans from a dozen other species occupied the observation gallery. The Cathari emissary to his left, the Vel terminal to his right. All of them had spilled blood across systems. All of them carried scars visible and invisible. The moderator, a spindly Sareb pod suspended above the floor, pulsed gently. Veteran Veth Kral of the Grulen 3rd Expeditionary Force, you have been called to share your testimony regarding the most significant military threat you encountered during your service. Veth Kral's mandibles clicked once, a nervous habit he'd never shaken. The Xylos incursions, said a Cathari veteran from the gallery. Everyone knows. They nearly consumed 14 sectors. The swarm, offered a Vel. Mechanical, relentless, no mercy to negotiate. Veth Kral remained silent. His 3 hearts beat in uneven rhythm. The Sareb moderator drifted closer. Veteran, please state your answer for the record. He looked up. His eyes, 4 of them, arranged in a crescent across his wide face, found each speaker in turn. You're all wrong. The gallery stirred. A rustle of fabric, clicking of joints, hum of translator units struggling with the Grulen's low register. The Xylos were predictable, Veth Kral said. They fed, they expanded, they avoided strong resistance. The swarm followed programming, find weaknesses, exploit gaps, calculate probability. He paused, his mandibles clicked again. No one warned me about humans. Silence settled like cold gravity. Then a scoff from the back, a burly Gruntok veteran whose reputation preceded him. Humans, the species from the 3rd spiral arm, they barely achieved faster-than-light travel 3 cycles ago. Their military technology is primitive. Their ships are. Veth Kral interrupted. The Gruntok stopped. Veth Kral leaned forward. The amber lights caught the ridge of a scar running from his eye cluster to his jaw hinge, a scar he'd received in his final engagement. 3 cycles ago, their technology was primitive. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles and explosive compounds we'd surpassed 10,000 years before. His voice dropped. None of that mattered. He activated the hollow projector built into the witness stand. Images flickered to life, battlefield footage, intercepted communications, wreckage analysis. But he didn't play any of it yet. Instead, he looked at the gathered veterans, at creatures who had conquered worlds, exterminated rebellions, faced horrors that would shatter civilian minds. How many of you, Veth Kral asked quietly, have seen an enemy soldier cry while reloading her weapon? How many of you have watched a wounded combatant crawl through mud to place a bandage on a dying enemy? How many of you have been spared? No answer. How many of you have been forgiven? The Gruntok shifted uncomfortably. The Cathari emissary's feathered display flattened against her neck. Veth Kral touched the hollow control. Then let me show you what happens when you invade a species that should have surrendered, and didn't. The chamber lights dimmed. The first image bloomed, a planet viewed from orbit, blue, green, white clouds swirling over oceans. Earth, Veth Kral said. I'm going to tell you about the war that ended my career, and I'm going to tell you why, after everything I've seen, I still can't sleep without checking the door. The image zoomed toward the surface, toward a city burning. Because no one warned me about humans, and by the time I understood what they were. The screen went dark. It was already too late. The war began like all wars. Grulen High Command identified a resource-rich system on the galactic frontier. Preliminary scans showed no centralized government, no military presence worth calculating. The native species, classified as Homo sapiens, had barely touched their own moon. Veth Kral remembered the briefing. A junior intelligence officer had presented the findings with bored confidence. Primitive social structures, divided into competing nation-states, current technology level insufficient to threaten even our scout vessels. Estimated resistance duration, 48 standard hours. The room had laughed. Veth Kral hadn't laughed. Something about the images bothered him. The way humans built cities on active fault lines. The way they explored deep oceans and frozen wastelands. The way they looked at cameras, not with fear but with curiosity. He should have trusted that instinct. The invasion began at Torin Valley, a human colony world orbiting a dying star. 3 million settlers, minimal defenses. The Grulen sent 6 ships. Veth Kral piloted the lead assault carrier. His mission: secure the administrative center, capture civilian leadership, force surrender without significant destruction. Standard protocol for a minor species. The first sign of trouble came at atmospheric entry. Commander, his sensor officer reported, were picking up scattered signals, surface-based, there, broadcasting. Broadcasting what? Music. Veth Kral had reviewed human physiology. They used sound for communication. Music was a form of artistic expression. It made no tactical sense. Jam the frequencies. We're trying. They're switching channels faster than we can track. The second sign came when the drop pods launched. Human ground forces, militia, really, armed with civilian vehicles and hunting weapons, didn't flee, didn't surrender, didn't form organized defensive lines. They vanished. Entire settlements emptied. The Grulen advanced through silent streets, past homes with meals still on tables, past schools with children's artwork still drying on walls. Creepy. Wrong. Veth Kral ordered his squads to maintain formation. Then the shooting started. Not from prepared positions, from everywhere. Windows, rooftops, sewer grates. A human female in farming coveralls stepped out of a grain silo with a projectile rifle and fired until her weapon overheated. She wounded 3 Grulen before they brought her down. Veth Kral's tactical display showed a nightmare. No front line, no flank, just hundreds of scattered contacts moving through buildings, tunnels, trees, acting without apparent coordination but with terrible effectiveness. Commander Squad 7 is pinned, requesting extraction. Squad 3 has casualties. We're pulling back to regroup. Command, this is Squad 9. We found the civilians. They're in a network of tunnels beneath the transmission ended in static. Veth Kral ordered his carrier to altitude. He needed perspective, needed to understand what he was facing. Below, Torin Valley burned in patches. Not from orbital bombardment, he'd forbidden that. From human sabotage. They'd set fire to their own fuel depots, destroyed their own bridges, turned their infrastructure into obstacles. A human shuttle lifted from the far side of the valley, civilian model, unarmed. It flew directly toward a Grulen gunship. Target that shuttle, Veth Kral ordered. Before his weapons could lock, the shuttle accelerated, rammed the gunship. Both vessels exploded, debris raining onto a human hospital that had been evacuated hours ago. Veth Kral stared at the expanding cloud of wreckage. Commander, his sensor officer said, voice tight, I'm detecting additional launches, multiple shuttles, agricultural vehicles, even personal transports. They're all heading for our ships. Shoot them down. We're trying, there are too many. The first human vehicle, a rusted cargo hauler with armor plates welded to its frame, collided with a Grulen frigate's engine section. The explosion didn't destroy the frigate, but it disabled maneuvering thrusters, made the ship a sitting target. Other vehicles followed. None turned away. None attempted to surrender or negotiate. Veth Kral watched a human male, face visible through a cracked cockpit window, steer his burning aircraft directly into a Grumman ground battery. The man's expression wasn't rage, wasn't desperation. It was calm. That was the moment Vethkrau realized he didn't understand what he was fighting. And that realization was 3 hours late. The ambush at Torin Valley remains classified in Grumman military archives, not because of strategic importance, because High Command cannot explain how they lost. Vethkrau can explain he was there. After 20 hours of chaotic urban fighting, his forces secured the valley's administrative district. The human militia pulled back. Silence returned. His tactical officers reported enemy forces at 20% effectiveness, supplies depleted, leadership structure collapsed. "Commander, we should consolidate our position," his second-in-command advised. "Wait for reinforcements. The humans will negotiate once they understand resistance is futile." Vethkrau agreed. He ordered his remaining squads into defensive positions around the captured government building. Sentries posted, heavy weapons covering approach vectors, standard fortress protocol. The humans attacked at dawn. Not from the expected directions. They came through a drainage tunnel his sensors had dismissed as too small for military movement. They'd widened it, in the dark, while Grumman patrols passed overhead. 27 humans emerged from the mud, carrying projectile weapons, explosives, and one weapon Vethkrau couldn't identify at first. A child's toy. The human female who carried it, Gunnery Sergeant Moriko, he would learn her name later, held a plastic doll missing one arm. She placed it on a crate before the assault began, touched its painted face. Vethkrau watched through a security feed. He didn't understand the gesture. He thought it was psychological warfare, some primitive ritual to frighten enemies. He was wrong about everything. The humans moved like they'd been fighting together for years. They hadn't. Most were farmers, mechanics, teachers who'd received weapons 3 days before the invasion, but they moved as one, covering each other, drawing fire so others could advance, shouting warnings, encouragement, names. They knew each other's names, every single one. A Grumman heavy weapons platform turned a corner into the human flank. 6 armored soldiers with rapid-fire plasma casters, against 5 humans with ballistic rifles. The humans should have died. Instead, they scattered, not randomly, intentionally. 2 ran left, drawing fire. 2 ran right. The 5th, a young male with a medic symbol painted on his helmet, ran straight at the Grumman position. He didn't shoot. He carried a satchel charge, primitive explosive, manual detonation. The Grumman gunners hesitated. 1 standard second of confusion while their tactical computers identified the threat. The human crossed 30 meters in that second. The explosion took out the heavy weapons platform and the human. His squad didn't stop moving, didn't mourn, didn't retreat. They used the smoke to close distance, firing into the disoriented Grumman survivors. 40 seconds after contact, all 6 Grumman soldiers were dead. The 4 remaining humans advanced toward the government building. Vethkrau ordered his personal guard to the entrance. 10 elite soldiers, combat armor, energy shields, weapons that could melt through reinforced alloy. Moriko arrived first. She wasn't large by human standards, below average height, lean build, face streaked with mud and blood. Her rifle had been damaged in the earlier fighting. She carried it anyway, pointed at the ground. Vethkrau's guard opened fire. Moriko dove behind a structural pillar. Her squad took positions around the courtyard. They didn't have enough ammunition for a sustained exchange. They had to know that. The Grumman guard advanced. Overwhelming firepower, tactical superiority, textbook military victory. Then Moriko stood up. Not to surrender, to talk. "Your commander," she shouted across the courtyard, "is he in there?" The Grumman guard hesitated. Their protocols didn't cover enemy infantry, requesting conversation mid-battle. Moriko didn't wait for an answer. She walked forward, hands away from her damaged rifle. No cover, no weapon, no shield. "Tell him I want to talk." A Grulen soldier raised his plasma caster, locked target, waited for the order to fire. Vethkral watched the feed, watched this small, wounded, exhausted human female walk towards certain death with the same calm expression he'd seen on the pilot who rammed his ship. He didn't understand. That was the problem. He kept trying to understand instead of accepting what was happening. "Hold fire," he ordered. His guard looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Hold fire and bring her inside." Moriko stopped at the building entrance, looked up at the security camera, straight into Vethkral's eyes through the feed. She smiled. It wasn't warm. The numbers never made sense. Vethkral reviewed the intelligence after the war, analyzed every report, every casualty figure, every resource assessment. By every metric, humans should have lost. Their industrial capacity was laughable. Their population spread across a handful of worlds. Their military technology lagged 3 technological ages behind Grulen's standard. Yet he sat in Chinese letter chamber with a scar across his face and a trembling hand. "The intelligence failures," the Sereb moderator observed, "are well documented. Human adaptability exceeded projections, but surely there were strategic indicators, patterns that should have been recognized." Vethkral's mandibles clicked 3 times, laughter in Grulen culture, bitter laughter. "We looked for patterns, that was our mistake." He pulled up the first image, a human female standing in front of a burning building. Moriko again. She held the one-armed doll. "We categorized human behavior into threat assessments, determined their logical responses to military pressure, calculated the probability of surrender, negotiation, or continued resistance based on historical examples from 200 other species." He turned to face the gallery. Every calculation was wrong. The Cathari emissary leaned forward. "Explain." Vethkral activated the next image. A human hospital, not military, civilian. The Grulen had avoided bombing it during the invasion, standard rules of engagement for a species not yet classified as existential threat. After the Tauran Valley engagement, we captured human medical records, not for intelligence purposes, for understanding. We wanted to know what drove them. The image shifted, text scrolled, medical terminology, surgical reports, psychiatric evaluations. We discovered something our analysts dismissed as insignificant. Humans form attachment bonds, not just with family, with anyone, with strangers, with enemies sometimes. He paused. "We also discovered that when those bonds are threatened, human physiology changes. Adrenaline, cortisol, a chemical response that suppresses pain, heightens awareness, and enables physical performance far beyond normal human limits." Another image. A human male, middle-aged civilian clothes, lifting a vehicle off a trapped child. The vehicle weighed over a ton. The human spine should have shattered. Every species has fight or flight responses. Every species will protect offspring. But humans, Vethkral's voice dropped. Humans will die for someone they met 20 minutes ago. They'll fight for people they'll never know. They'll burn their own cities to deny resources to an enemy. He looked at the Gruntalk veteran. "You asked why their primitive technology didn't matter. Here's the answer. Because technology doesn't matter when the enemy doesn't care about surviving." The Gruntalk scales rippled, discomfort. "We captured a human soldier during the final withdrawal," Vethkral continued. "Interrogated him for 6 hours. Standard procedure, chemical enhancement, psychological pressure. He told us everything we wanted to know." He activated the final image for this segment. A recording. A human male, young, face bruised, sitting in a Grulen interrogation chair. Your species values self-preservation, the off-screen interrogator said. Your cooperation is logical. The human looked at the camera. His eyes were swollen. One arm hung at an unnatural angle. You want to know why we won't quit? He laughed, coughed blood, laughed again. Because my sister lives on Earth, my nephews, my best friend's kids, I don't know their names, doesn't matter. He leaned forward, broken arm dragging. You threaten them, you touch them, and I don't care if I die. I don't care if every human dies. We will make you regret existing. The interrogator pressed for more. Locations, strategies, military assets. The human smiled. You're not getting anything else, because now I'm thinking about them. And you know what happens when a human thinks about protecting their people. He spat blood onto the Grulin symbol on the floor. We stopped being afraid. The recording ended. Vethkrau closed the hollow display. The Chinese letter chamber felt smaller, colder. Our analysts called that emotional instability, a flaw in human cognition. We assumed they would break under sustained pressure, that their attachment bonds would become liabilities, targets we could exploit. He looked at his own hands, clawed, capable of killing. We didn't understand that those bonds weren't weaknesses. They were weapons, and humans. His voice cracked. Humans taught us how to use them. The retreat began on schedule. Grulin High Command. After assessing casualties at Torin Valley and 3 other colony worlds, determined the human campaign was not worth the cost. 14 ships lost. Over 2,000 soldiers killed or missing, all for a resource bore system with a species that refused to follow tactical predictions. Standard military doctrine dictated a fighting withdrawal, covering fire, strategic demolitions, extraction of high-value assets before enemy forces could pursue. The humans didn't allow any of that. Vethkrau remembered the moment everything changed. His flagship, the Sword of Grula, had just completed orbital insertion above the human colony World Harvest. Evacuation shuttles were inbound from the surface. 97% of Grulin forces were accounted for. Then the shuttles stopped coming. Commander, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting surface-to-orbit launches, not ours. Human reinforcements. Negative there. They're launching escape pods from their own disabled vessels, thousands of them, all on trajectories toward our fleet. Vethkrau stared at the tactical display. Escape pods were designed for survival, not combat. No weapons, minimal maneuvering. They were essentially target practice. But there were too many to shoot down. Thousands of pods, launched simultaneously from every human ship that had been crippled during the campaign. Some had been drifting in orbit for days. Some had been grounded on the surface, repaired just enough to achieve escape velocity. Where did they get the fuel? Someone asked. Vethkrau knew the answer before the words left his mouth. They've been stockpiling the entire time. While we thought we were winning, they were planning this. The escape pods didn't attack. They didn't need to. They latched onto Grulin ships, hundreds of pods per vessel, magnetic clamps designed for emergency docking procedures. The humans had reprogrammed them to attach to anything. And inside those pods, soldiers, militia, civilians who'd volunteered for a one-way trip. The Sword of Grula registered 47 hull breaches in the first 3 minutes. Boarding actions. Humans using cutting torches and explosive charges to force entry into a warship 30 times their size. Vethkrau ordered internal defenses activated, sealed compartments, automated turrets, gas dispersal systems, everything his flagship had to repel boarders. The humans didn't care. He watched security feeds as a group of 8 humans, 8 breached cargo bay 7. Automated turrets killed 3 in the first 2 seconds. The remaining 5 used the bodies as cover, advanced while their dead comrades were still falling, reached the turrets and disabled them with shaped charges. Total elapsed time, 11 seconds. Commander, his security chief shouted, they're through Section 4. They're heading for the bridge. How many? 30, maybe 40. They're splitting into smaller groups, using maintenance shafts, ventilation systems. They studied our ship schematics. Veth Kral's blood chilled. Where did they get our schematics? The answer came from his communications officer. Sir, we're intercepting human transmissions. They have our entire tactical database, deployment positions, ship vulnerabilities, command codes. How? A human voice answered before his officer could. Broadcast on all frequencies. Female, calm. Your interrogator on Harvest, the one who broke our soldier's arm. We found him in the wreckage of your command center. He told us everything before he died. Veth Kral recognized the voice. Moriko. You should have killed us when you had the chance, she continued. You should have bombed our cities from orbit, burned our farms, left nothing but ash. We would have done the same to you. A pause. But you didn't, because you thought we were weak. You thought we'd break. You thought your technology would save you. Her voice hardened. Now we're on your ship, and we're not leaving. Veth Kral ordered the bridge sealed, reinforced blast doors, emergency bulkheads. If he could contain the humans in the outer sections, he could vent atmosphere, kill them with vacuum. The blast doors closed, the bulkheads dropped. For 30 seconds the bridge was a sealed fortress. Then the lights went out. Emergency power is offline, his engineer reported. They targeted the primary conduits, sir. They knew exactly where to hit. In the darkness, Veth Kral heard something. Footsteps coming closer. He drew his sidearm, pointed it at the main bridge entrance. His guard did the same. 15 Grulan soldiers, elite veterans all, waiting in darkness for an enemy they couldn't see. The footsteps stopped. A voice close, too close. You want to know why we're winning? Moriko, inside the bridge, somehow already past the guards, past the blast doors, past every defense. Because you fight for your empire, your commanders, your duty. A light flickered on. Moriko stood 3 meters away. Her uniform was torn. Her face was bleeding. She held a plasma cutter in one hand and a Grulan service pistol in the other. We fight for each other. She raised the pistol. Now drop your weapons, or don't. Either way, this ends the same. The bridge of the Sword of Grula had been designed to withstand a direct hit from a capital ship's main cannon. Its walls were AL-reinforced composite. Its blast doors could seal against explosive decompression. Its security systems could identify and neutralize threats in less than a second. None of that mattered. Moriko stood in the center of the bridge with a captured Grulan pistol and 12 rounds of ammunition. Her plasma cutter had been set down, a gesture Veth Kral would later understand as a choice, not a necessity. Behind her, the blast doors groaned. Her team was cutting through. They'd be inside in minutes. Commander Veth Kral, she said, not a question. She'd studied his face on the security feeds. You have 43 soldiers on this bridge. I have 4 magazines. My squad has explosives placed on every deck from here to engineering. She tilted her head. Let's talk. Veth Kral's guards hadn't fired. Not because they were afraid. Grulan soldiers didn't experience fear the way other species did. They hadn't fired because their tactical computers couldn't guarantee a hit without hitting each other. Moriko had positioned herself perfectly, between them, in the crossfire's kill zone. She knew their tactics, their formations, their weaknesses. What do you want? Veth Kral asked. Your surrender. The bridge went quiet. Even the alarms seemed to pause. You're outnumbered, Veth Kral said. Outgunned. Your forces on the surface are being evacuated. Your ships are destroyed. You've won a battle, not a war. Moriko smiled, that same not-warm smile from Torin Valley. You don't get it. You never got it. This isn't a battle. This is a message. She took a step closer. The guards raised their weapons. She ignored them. You invaded our worlds, killed our people, thought we'd roll over like every other species you've conquered. But here's the thing about humans. Another step. We've been fighting each other for our entire existence. Every war crime, every atrocity, every horror you can imagine, we've done it to ourselves, and we survived. She stopped 1 meter from Veth Crow, close enough to see the individual scars on his face, the one she'd given him during the boarding action. You didn't bring war to a peaceful species. You brought war to a species that perfected war before you evolved. Veth Crow's mandibles clicked, not laughter this time, something else. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to go home, take your fleet, take your soldiers, leave our space and never come back. Your commanders will never agree to. This isn't about my commanders. Moriko's voice dropped. This is about me, about the 23 people I have left in my squad, about the 100,000 civilians you're holding in your camps. She reached into her pocket, slow, deliberate, pulled out a small object. The plastic doll, one arm missing, painted face smudged with dirt. You asked about this earlier, in the courtyard. You thought it was a weapon, a ritual, something tactical. She held the doll up. It's my daughter's. She's on Earth. She's 6 years old. She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm on a work trip. Her voice cracked for the first time. I'm not going to see her again. My squad isn't going home. We knew that when we boarded this ship. We knew that when we volunteered. She placed the doll on Veth Crow's command console. But my daughter is going to grow up in a galaxy where her species isn't afraid, where aliens know that if they come for us, we will make them pay for every inch, every minute, every breath. She stepped back, raised the pistol. So here's my offer. You surrender. You order your fleet to withdraw. You release our civilians, and you spend the rest of your life telling anyone who will listen what happened here today. Veth Crow's tactical display showed human reinforcements arriving in system, not military ships, civilian vessels, freighters, passenger liners, yachts, hundreds of them packed with armed volunteers who'd heard the call for help. They weren't coming to fight. They were coming to die, every single one of them if that's what it took. He looked at the doll, at the smudged paint, at the missing arm. What if I refuse? Moriko's expression didn't change. Then my squad blows the explosives. We all die. Your ship breaks in half. Your fleet watches their flagship burn. And the next ship that tries to invade human space will know exactly what's waiting for them. She raised the pistol to his eye cluster. Either way, I get what I want. The only question is whether you get to go home. Veth Crow lowered his weapon. The bridge's blast doors opened. Moriko's squad poured in 22 exhausted, wounded, dust-covered humans. They didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. They simply stood behind their sergeant and waited. Commander, Veth Crow's second-in-command, whispered, "We can still fight." Veth Crow looked at the doll, at Moriko's face, at the humans behind her, each one carrying something, a photograph, a letter, a child's drawing. "Stand down," he said. The war ended 37 standard hours later. Chinese letter chamber remained silent for a long time after Veth Crow finished speaking. The Sereb moderator's glow had dimmed to near darkness. The Cathari emissary's feathers lay flat against her body. The Gruntok veteran sat motionless, his massive hands gripping the armrests of his chair. Veth Crow didn't move. His testimony was complete. The hollow display showed only the Grulen military symbol, a concession the moderator had granted to settle his nerves. "Veteran," the Sereb finally said, "your testimony is significant. The Galactic Assembly will require corroboration from other witnesses, but your account—" "Doesn't matter," Veth Crow interrupted. "Whether they believe me, whether they file my report, none of that matters." He stood, his old wounds ached, the scar on his face throbbed. What matters is what happens next, because I'm not the only one who fought humans. I'm not the only one who saw what they're capable of. And I'm not the only one who's been having nightmares for 3 cycles. The Gruntalk veteran spoke. You're saying we should be afraid of them. I'm saying you should understand them. Vethkral walked toward the center of the chamber. Fear makes you irrational. Panic makes you stupid. Understanding, that's useful. He turned to face the observation gallery. Humans will be kind. They'll help strangers. They'll risk their lives for people they don't know. They'll build hospitals on hostile worlds and feed enemy soldiers who have surrendered. They'll do all of that without expecting anything in return. He paused. And then they'll burn your civilization to the ground if you threaten someone they love. The chamber's main door opened. A figure entered, human, female, late middle age by human standards, gray streaking her dark hair, lines around her eyes. She wore civilian clothing, a simple jacket, dark pants, nothing threatening. Vethkral's hand went to his sidearm. The moderator's glow flared. Veteran, this is Ambassador Tors. She's here as an observer for the human delegation to the Galactic Assembly. Her presence was approved by the committee. Vethkral didn't lower his hand. Ambassador Tors walked to an empty seat in the gallery, sat down, crossed her legs, looked at him with calm curiosity. Please, she said, continue. I'd like to hear the rest. Vethkral's heart hammered. His mandibles clicked rapidly. The scar on his face throbbed like it had been carved yesterday. He looked at her hands. No weapons, no armor, no visible threat. Just a human sitting calmly, listening. Just like Moriko had listened. Just like the medic who'd walked into Gruelen fire. Just like the pilot who'd rammed a gunship with a smile on his face. You're not afraid of me, Vethkral said, not a question. Ambassador Tors tilted her head. Should I be? You're in a room full of veterans who have killed your species, who tried to conquer your worlds. Who lost, she interrupted, quietly, politely. You lost, Commander, 3 cycles ago. Your empire signed a peace treaty. Your forces withdrew from our space. Your people paid reparations. She leaned forward slightly. We don't hold grudges. That's not how we work. The Gruntalk veteran snorted. Every species says that. Every species lies. Ambassador Tors looked at him. Her expression didn't change, didn't harden, didn't soften. We don't hold grudges, she repeated, but we remember. The chamber went cold. Vethkral remembered Moriko's face, the doll on his console, the look in her eyes when she said she wasn't going home. Ambassador, he said, why are you here? Tors stood, walked toward him. Every veteran in the gallery tensed. Hands moved toward weapons. She stopped 1 meter away. Same distance Moriko had stopped on the bridge. Because the Assembly is considering military action against a species in the Cygnus arm, they've asked for human participation. I'm here to listen to testimony about our combat effectiveness. She glanced at the hollow display, at the Gruelen symbol. And to make sure no one forgets what happened the last time someone underestimated us. Vethkral's hand finally left his sidearm. Then let me finish my testimony, he said. Let me tell them what no one told me. He turned to the observation gallery, to the recording devices, to the Sereb moderator and the Cathari emissary and the Gruntalk veteran who'd scoffed at humans 3 hours ago. No one warned me about humans, he said. No one told me that their kindness isn't weakness, their silence isn't acceptance, their patience isn't fear. He looked at Ambassador Tors. She nodded. So let me warn you now. Let me tell you what happens when you push a species that has spent its entire existence fighting for survival. When you threaten a species that loves so fiercely, so completely, that death becomes an acceptable price. He raised his voice, not shouting, projecting. Humans will not start a war. They will not invade your space. They will not conquer your worlds. They don't want your resources or your territory or your obedience. He pointed at Ambassador Tours. But if you start a war with them, if you threaten their families, their homes, their people, they will not stop. They will not negotiate. They will not surrender. They will burn every ship you send. They will turn every world you take into a graveyard. They will fight you with farming equipment and escape pods and children's toys if that's all they have left. He lowered his arm. And they will win, not because their technology is better, not because their tactics are superior, not because they're stronger or faster or smarter. He looked at each veteran in turn. They will win because they have something no other species in the galaxy has developed, something our scientists still can't classify. He paused. Hope, not hope for survival, not hope for victory, hope for something better, something worth dying for, something worth killing for. He turned to Ambassador Tours one final time. You wanted my testimony. That's it. That's everything. Humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy not because of what they can do to you. He sat down, exhausted. But because of what they'll do for each other. Chinese letter chamber erupted in noise. Questions, protests, demands for clarification. Vethkral didn't hear any of it. He was watching Ambassador Tours, watching her face. She was smiling. Not warmly, not coldly. Just understanding. She nodded at him once, then stood, walked to the chamber's exit, paused at the door. Thank you, Commander, she said, for understanding us. She left. The door closed. Vethkral sat in silence. The scar on his face didn't throb anymore. His heart's beat steady. His mandibles stopped clicking. He looked at the empty space where she'd been standing, at the chair where she'd sat, at the door she'd walked through. And for the first time in 3 cycles, he knew exactly why he couldn't sleep without checking the door. Because humans were out there, walking through galaxies, sitting in Chinese letter chambers, smiling at veterans who tried to destroy them. And no one had warned him. No one ever would. Because there were no warnings for humans. There was only the memory of a plastic doll on a command console, a one-armed doll with smudged paint, a doll that had belonged to a 6-year-old girl on a planet called Earth. A doll that had ended a war. Vethkral closed his eyes. The recording devices kept running. The veterans kept arguing. The Sereb moderator kept trying to restore order. None of it mattered. The war was over. The humans had won. And Vethkral, commander, veteran, survivor, had learned the only lesson that mattered. Never underestimate a species that loves.